Welcome to the second roundtable or panel discussion this morning, this early afternoon. My name is Dina Musindarezo. I'm a feminist activist working at the intersection of feminist political economy and feminist movement organizing. Really honored to be moderating this important critical discussion that is going to focus on radical economic pathways. And this is a panel of eminent speakers that come from different global South countries that have been working on the issues of delinking, the economic justice, and really thinking about ways through which we can transition and move away from the current economic system that is extractive, exploitative, that is violent to human beings, to our system, to our planet, and to really imagine and think about another way of life, another way of living, an economic system that centers care, that centers justice, that centers human rights, that centers life and planet, but also peace. And so I wanted us to, before we start, to ground ourselves and remind ourselves of a quote from a Black political feminist, Angela Davis, who says that you have to act as if it were possible to radically transform the world, and you have to do it all at the same time. And these people here are actually people who have been reimagining but also doing at the same time. And I thought that invoking the spirit of Davis Angela is really a good way to ground ourselves, but also to remind us to be radical in our thinking, in our imagination, and to be courageous, because the current system as it is not one that we can continue with. There has to be another way. And we have people, luckily, that have been thinking about that question. And so I'm going to start by introducing our first speaker, who is Rodolphe Laho from Philippines, who has been working on sovereignty of state to decide on question of public services. And Rodolphe is from IBON International, which is an international global movement working on issues of global justice and economic issues, especially from the anti-imperialist perspective. And Rodolphe, you have the floor.
Thanks, Dina. I'm Rodolfo. Well, we at IBON International isn't precisely a movement. No, we are more of a organization supporting movements, no, through research, advocacy, and other ways, no, of supporting movement building. And it's hard to follow that first panel after laying down really essentially the political economic foundations of everything that we're about. So I would rather, like Max, no, what else could I say? No? So I decided to try to add a bit more, no, to what they said and what I think should we be also thinking about, no, in our countries in the global south, who may not be in the same position as other countries right now who have left parties, no, in state power and are in a better position to resist, no. Well, we already know that this capitalist imperialist system is draining us, no, due to its relentless drive for profit, no, and it is now in itself in crisis, no. The video that we watched this morning, no, I think is a good way of saying that it is the right time now, no, as any, to slay this vampire for us to be able to live. No. Neoliberalism, the policy support, no, of this vampire, no, is a zombie. It is dead. It should be dead, but it is walking. No, this is the world we live in. No, Jason Hickel, I was thinking that he would say this. No, but he was actually able to say in quantity terms, no, how much has been stolen from the global south through unequal exchange. No? Through their work, they established that $152 trillion has been drained from the global south to the north from 1960 to 2017. Where did this go? Where did this trillions go? The top three? Guess, three countries. US, Japan, and Germany, which he mentioned. No? So the US alone gained around 18 trillion from that span of a decade. No? And this stealing of wealth, looting of wealth, as some of our comrades would say, increased increased dramatically in rate in the decades of structural adjustment and the establishment of the WTO. When did it slow down? Jason Hickel and their comrades were saying. During the early 70s, when there were developmentalist states and national liberation movements. No? And this is where I bring up this importance of movement building to this day. No? We are still at a time that for us to delink as a process, we still need to think about winning those victories of reclaiming our own destinies and cutting the chains of imperialism in our own countries in the South. No? We already established that sovereignty is an alternative, and we should support indeed the countries asserting their sovereignty against imperialism. But also in other parts of the world, sovereignty entails this long process of movement building and constructing the popular alliance that Samir Amin was talking about. Movement building to say the sovereignty of working classes, the farmers, indigenous peoples, women in struggle in our countries, who are the most interested in economic rupture, because they are themselves fighting the plunder of nature in our territories, fighting development aggression, the plunder of ancestral domains and lands. They are themselves resisting the low wages, the macho fascist patriarchal power against women in various parts of the world. So the linking also rests, as has been mentioned, on this popular sovereignty. And we should always remember that imperialism benefits from weakening and even destroying our movements in the global South, trying to make us cower, in the face of this monster and fascism, the right-wing comeback, In other parts of the world, like where I came from, the Filipinas, issues that you may have been thinking has been gone in other countries, which should have belonged to prior decades, desaparecidos, killings, false charges, inflicting violence, are still issues against movements precisely wanting to establish national industrialization and genuine agrarian reform, who are against women's movements, who are joining broader national liberation movements in our country. So we should have sovereignty to plan our economic paths, to say yes to public spending, to public health, education and transport systems, to socialize care, to regulate corporations, to have living wages for workers, to say that agriculture should feed our people and not export, that we can construct industries to provide our needs instead of feeding the machine of monopoly capital. We should be able to apply this without being threatened to be bombed, cooled, or sanctioned. The US war machine should be stopped for us to do this. Movement building, national liberation, and delinking are all interlinked and entails at some point weakening and destroying the US war machine, even in our countries. Because we know that one way of destroying our movements in our countries is through US imperialist aggression, counterinsurgency, counterterrorism, so-called. Without imperialism, we can flourish, Ghassan Kanafani was known to have said, imperialism has laid its body over the world, the head in Eastern Asia, the heart in the Middle East, which we would like to say now West Asia and North Africa. Its arteries reaching Africa and Latin America. Wherever you strike it, you damage it, and you serve the world revolution. This we see today in the continuing liberation struggles, including for a free Palestine, which we should fully support politically, materially, and I believe my other comrades will talk about. So let us reclaim our destinies, free Palestine, down with imperialism, long live international solidarity.
Yes.
Viva!
Yes, viva! Yeah, and thank you so much. I think you have also reminded us the importance of centering movements, because also capitalism, the capitalistic, imperialistic systems we have recognize that at the same. it realizes that the center of change and transformation is social justice movements. And that's why we have to guard them jealously and make sure that we remain strong. That's why we are here. That's why the delinking is also centering, a strategy of building a global movement that is going to bring about transformation. So thank you so much, Rodolfo, for that. And now I would like to invite Neth, who is going to be our next speaker. So Neth Dano is a researcher from Philippines working on food sovereignty and technology justice. And Neth, this morning will be speaking about technology monopoly and delinking. So you have the floor, Neth.
Thank you, Dinah. And thank you very much for the audience for sharing your morning with us. And just to emphasize that a number of our speakers in the first panel actually highlighted the central role that technology plays in the whole delinking project. And that's what I will going to highlight in my presentation. As we all know, under capitalism, technology is developed and used mainly to serve capital's interests rather than the needs of humanity. That's the sad, tragic fact. Technology has become a tool for capitalists to increase control over labor, extend the working day, and suppress workers' resistance. Technology and technological innovation develop under capitalism as a means by which capital can seek to replace costly and rebellious human labor with automated machineries which can theoretically bring labor cost. Tons of studies showed that it's not true. Samir Amin himself viewed technology as a critical tool for global monopolies. That's why our speakers earlier said that it's an important component of the whole delinking project. Those global monopolies develop mainly for profit accumulation, not for people's welfare, and definitely enabled by property rights. We see this very clearly in the north-south direction of conventional traditional transfer, where most of these technologies are developed in the core, in the north, and exported to the south, who use them for whatever, never mind if the realities actually don't need that. Like, it's a common feature, in our mind, like when we say technology, like in farm and agriculture, that's tractor. In my part of the world, farmers don't even call tractor tractor. They call them kubota, which is the Japanese brand of smaller tractors. And if you go to the plantation, that's John Deere. They don't even call this the generic machine, but the brands of the northern core. In the sweatshops that produce all this cheap commercial fast fashion, it's actually the machines developed from the north that have become the symbol of oppression of women whose life, blood, sweat have actually enabled this kind of consumerism that is fueling the elite of the South and also the North. Even if we go to commercial products, like in my part of the world again, many people won't even call toothpaste toothpaste. They will say, "Do you have Colgate?" So that's not even ours. It's Colgate's. Every nuts and bolts, even paper clip, nails come from outside, increasingly from China as an alternative core, but mainly the more sophisticated, expensive nuts and bolts for you to repair, to do something in your farm, in your home, comes from Germany, comes from the north. And we now live in a world where a handful of transnational corporations dominate global markets in every single industrial sector. Take, for example, food and agriculture. From seeds and agrochemicals to farm machinery to retail to commodity trading are actually controlled by a few, very few. In fact, when you talk of seeds, only 4 companies dominate 60% of the market. 75% of the market is controlled by the same companies that control the seeds market. And how did that happen? It's not just because it's the natural accumulation of capital, it's mainly because of technology. Like this companies control intellectual property rights, trade secrets, copyrights, industrial design, name it. All forms of industrial intellectual property rights and industrial enclosure to stamp their ownership and regulate access to that technology. And lo and behold, these companies establish oligopolies. I would say establish consciously because they exchange licenses, they share their scientific researches through joint ventures and scientific collaboration. So monopolies, yes, and oligopolies because it's agreed among themselves that they will cooperate, and they call that scientific cooperation among themselves to develop and control and regulate access to these technologies. We are now at the threshold of the so-called fourth industrial revolution. Technology is not just central, but has become the holy grail of capitalism beyond what Marx and Amin have ever imagined. Not only has digitalization exterminated jobs and the skilled workers, we as peoples have become both the product and the source of data. Ford and Rockefeller have been replaced by far more ambitious, vicious, and soulless gods of technology who view competition as only for losers. That's Peter Thiel, the founder of PayPal and Palantir, that developed lavender technology and Where's Daddy for Israel, the genocide in Gaza. And those who think that empathy is a fundamental weakness of the Western civilization. That's Elon Musk, in all his pride, saying that empathy is a fundamental weakness of Western civilization. Competition is indeed only for the losers. In the tech economy, where the winner takes it all and where breaking things fast is the norm, that's Mark Zuckerberg, it's the model for rapid innovation and disruption regardless of who gets hurt or ruined as a consequence. These winners who took it all white men from the north, comprise 8 of the 10 richest people in the world whose combined value of wealth is at $2.23 trillion as of last month. These men are lionized in dominant narratives as geniuses and messiahs who will save the world from damnation without even acknowledgement of the teams and communities of innovators and workers who were part of the creation of these technologies and on whose backs these innovations are built on. The technology where the wealth of these tech billionaires is built on and thrived on the systematic looting of data that feed insatiable machine learning, that train more and more powerful AI, that are in the race to perform better than any of us, than the best of us, based on algorithms designed by the lords of Silicon Valley. As we talk of clouds and data, the material cost of digital technology and AI are often lost in the noise and excitement, just as concerns about environmental and climate cost of dependence on fossil fuels was rarely part of the equation in the 3 industrial revolutions before. Only recently, when the world is already deeply addicted to social media, dependent on digital gadgets and apps, and enthralled with what ChatGPT can do at the expense of our brain cells, did it come to light that the cloud means giant data centers that grab agricultural lands, compete for fresh water, for domestic and farming uses, and require massive energy supply to run 24/7. That the batteries for EVs and digital gadgets, wind turbines and solar panels need critical minerals and rare earth minerals needed to be mined from ancestral lands of indigenous peoples and local communities and cause runoff that destroy farmlands. Yes. Assertion of data sovereignty in the era of insatiable extraction of data by big tech platforms is fundamental to stop this systematic looting and siphoning of invaluable resources. Last sentence. Technology justice is built on the recognition on the role of peoples as users of technologies and as active participants in decision-making on what is needed to address our actual needs and realities. Mechanisms that assert digital sovereignty and technology sovereignty by pooling technologies from diverse sources of knowledge across the South should be part of the delinking project. So thank you for extending my time.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Neth. Really showing us how technology that has been sold as something that we all need, we can't survive without it, and yet it is still an imperialistic tool that is still exploiting workers in the interest of capital. So thank you so much for that. And may I remind my speakers, my panelists, that each one has 5 minutes. Please try and keep to 5 minutes. I know it's really hard to share with us a vision for transformation in 5 minutes, but I know you can do it. I know you're brilliant enough to do that. So now I would like to invite the third speaker for this afternoon, and that is Sarah Mahadi, who is so Sarah is a degrowth researcher, a political ecologist, and human rights activist whose work links politics, economics, and ecology to confront genocide, fascism, spurring inequality, and social injustice. She's trained in environment and development anthropology with a recent focus in degrowth policy pathways, and currently at the Autonomous University of Barcelona. Yeah, so Sarah is going to talk about degrowth and delinking. You have the floor, Sarah.
Thank you, Dina. I want to again thank Emilia and Equidad de Janeiro for bringing me here for Mexico and Mexico City. What an amazing, rich culture. I have embodied being corn, so I'm going to go back to London feeling like a dough ball of corn, and I will die for tlacoyos. So I just want to introduce myself, and also I will be representing the Degrowth and Delinking Collective here, which was formed after the International Degrowth Conference in Pontevedra in 2024 after an intervention from Emilia. So this collective, it convenes organizers, scholars, and practitioners and learners from all over the world within and beyond the degrowth community. So after this session, if you would like to join it, please catch any one of us. And we meet monthly via a WhatsApp hub, and we use leverage from within the imperial core to center, support, and strategize with the demands of the global south and the marginalized. So this is a space for collective knowledge generation. So thank you, Emilia, again. Yeah, so the world we're in right now is organized to kill and extract, and we have a genocide in Palestine in plain view with US cover and European complicity. And there are very many ways to say this, but I think the panel before us clarified with lots of facts and theorizations that we are in a shit show. And, you know, Oxfam and many others have shown the 5 richest men, they've doubled their wealth since 2020, while the billions have gotten poorer. And this is obviously not a bug or a glitch in Western capitalism. This is the operating system. And the hunt for economic growth in rich parts of the world is putting humanity on course for suicide. And this is a catastrophe that is already being felt by the global south, vulnerable population groups whose existence is affected by this ecological and net drain collapse. So among all of this, in the midst of all of this, what is degrowth? You know, it's essentially a critique of the West's tireless hunt for degrowth. And degrowth refers to a decline in economic activity that is democratically planned for social justice and intended to improve global well-being. Now, what does this mean? So it's not a recession. It's not austerity for the already poor. We cut waste at the top, so luxury emissions, throwaway tech, fossil military industrial complex, and then we expand what makes life good, to put it simply: public transit, housing, food, healthcare, care, clean air, shorter hours, and a real democracy. So if GDP dips but life gets safer and fairer, that's success. But why this now? Because the growth model and the US-led West sold the world and is burning the planet and locking in inequality. So when profits shake, the answer from Washington and Wall Street and NATO is never about care, of course, because this is by design. It's sanctions, it's coups, it's wars. And I think Latin Americans are most aware of this in this moment right now. So this, as we all know here and now, and also what the Rise Up series have demonstrated really well. I think everybody should go and Google them and watch them. They demonstrate this phenomenon really well. Is, it's not development, it's imperial crisis management, and this is all by design. It's meant to be this way. This is not something that has gone wrong. So for the global South and for the majority world, for us, the lands are lands whose resources, labor, and cultures subsidize this Western and European comfort. This conversation can feel very, lukewarm, like why degrowth? It can feel very underwhelming and not enough, and also violent. So if degrowth is to become a project of collective liberation rather than a regional lifestyle choice, it has to be braided together with a framework and strategy called delinking, which the panel before had expanded on. So it was coined by Samir Amin, and it means that the periphery stops taking orders from the core. So it's not isolation, but it's sovereignty. And the global South sets its own priorities: food and energy sovereignty, public control of essentials, industrial policy for need, South-South cooperation, tech on your terms, and you neutralize the levers the core uses, that is debt, dollar dominance, trade rules, military bases, and missiles. So these two, degrowth and delinking, they belong together. They met on a dating app called Our Burning World, and they belong together, It's not perfect, but that's just how it is. And degrowth without delinking lets the North go green by extracting even more from the South, and delinking without degrowth risks copy-pasting extraction under a new flag and name. So the formula is that we downshift and downscale the core: autonomy, dignity, and sovereignty in the periphery. So let's name the crimes. Okay, oh my God, okay. Palestine is the clearest window to the US imperial order, a US armed, US shielded settler regime carrying out, genocide with European complicity to secure land, choke points, markets, and a laboratory for weapons and surveillance and what's to come in the future. Venezuela shows another imperial tool: regime change by spreadsheet. Sanctions are a collective punishment designed to wreck medicine, food, investment, and then they point and say, see, socialism fails. So the point is not democracy, it's to discipline the South consistently. And delinking says that we reclaim these monetary tools, control capital flows, and trade on living terms, and refuse Washington's veto over our future. So if we zoom out to unequal exchange, which is the theft at the heart of Western capitalism, the South exports cheap labor, land, minerals, emissions, space, and the North imports the benefits and sends back debt and more sanctions and rules. So the leash is also money. If your currency and payment system are controlled from the outside, the dollar, the euro, the CFA, and your budget is serving creditors and not communities. So delinking means monetary sovereignty, public banking, capital controls, and the power to fund clinics and food instead of kneeling to bondholders. So I'll skip over because I have 1 minute and I'm getting nervous. But yeah, essentially for Europe to break the fossil NATO complex, we have to stop sanctions that starve populations and materially degrow, less throughput at the top, and more security for everyone. So what I want to say is that the South is not poor. We are not poor. We have been systematically drained and we are systematically impoverished. And we possess the fertile land, abundant labor, and the bulk of the planet's critical minerals, and yet we lack sovereign control over these capacities. So a truly global degrowth must therefore dismantle extractive contracts, cancel odious debts, transfer technology under Southern control, and let us be frank, end the military-industrial complex. USA, EU, and Israel's ongoing devastation of Palestine is how resource flows are controlled. A degrowth that ignores the military-industrial complex is just theater. And again, just to say, what we're witnessing in Palestine is a genocide. It's also the most violent enforcement of the global capitalist order led by the US. And delinking means breaking dependency on this imperialist core. It is not just about economic autonomy, it's about political, cultural, and military sovereignty. And for Palestine, delinking means dismantling the entire system that allows Israel's settler colonial project to be armed, funded, and legitimized. Yeah, so delinking is not abstract, it is material. It means resisting the economic and ideological machinery that makes genocide profitable and normalized. And the capitalist world system and the liberal political order cannot provide any material security to the majority, and it cannot stay within planetary boundaries. So its legitimacy is eroding. This is a falling castle. And in that turbulence, our struggles, Southern struggles for autonomy, are the decisive agents of transformation. And the North's duty is very clear. It has to decenter itself, relinquish imperial privilege, and become a genuine partner in building a multipolar ecological civilization. And remember that we are not a minority, we are the majority. The peoples of Africa, Asia, Oceania, Latin America constitute to 85% of humanity and an even greater share of the future. So if we organize, if we de-link, if we pair northern degrowth with southern sovereignty, we can redirect the planet's abundant resources away from imperial accumulation and toward collective flourishing. So de-linking is the strategic fulcrum. Justice-centered degrowth is its indispensable ally. Muerte a los Yankees, maldito sea Estado de America and Israel. Free Palestine. Fuck USA, fuck Israel.
Thank you. I think it is also difficult way to disrupt Sarah when she's speaking with so much passion and really giving us, you know, what is really tangible in terms of what we need to move away from and where we need to be. So thank you so much, Sarah, and also for reminding us that, you know, transformation is also about rewriting the narrative, you know, in terms of what we have had for a long time, that the South depends on the North, but actually it is the other way around. We have the voices, we have the resources, the labor, the minerals, even the technology, but yet we continue to hear that, you know, we are dependent and we need to be independent and we need to be autonomous and we need to be sustaining ourselves. Yes, we do need all those things, but actually the North depends on the South. And I think Dereje is going to come in also from that perspective, really talking about tax justice and the extent to which the global North continues to take away the resources that should have been used for our own development, for our own public services that are needed, and really to change the structure that sustains that. So I have the honor to introduce Dereje Almaye, who is a coordinator of Global Alliance for Tax Justice, which is a Southern-led global coalition. Dereje comes from South Africa. No, Dereje comes from from Ethiopia. Sorry, I'm not giving it to South Africa. Definitely not. You are going to remain in East Africa. But the most important thing is that Dereje comes from the global South and is part of the movement that is working towards the liberation of the global South. And we'll be speaking about how tax justice can contribute towards alternative economic pathways. Dereje, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I wouldn't mind coming from South Africa. Let me introduce my kepi. It resembles the MAGA color, but I'm not ready. I'm not ready to renounce red color to these idiots. That's why I insist on carrying. It says, "Stop the bleeding." It is the slogan of a campaign in Africa against the plundering that is going on. If you listen to the mass, if you follow the mass media, Africa is portrayed as a continent that is living on the life support coming from the north. But if you look into the matter, Africa is a net exporter of capital to the rest of the world. Even not denied by mainstream research, for every $1 US coming into Africa, $3 leave the continent. This is done through, you know, it is not without calculating the plunder, the centuries-long plunder, and it is just by the daytime robbery carried out by multinationals operating in Africa. So that is the story of my capital. So tax justice actually is a reformist movement. It is, you know, if you say people should pay taxes. Multinationals should pay taxes. The rich should pay taxes according to their income. You are not asking to abolish the system. You are asking those who are benefiting to abide by the laws that works for others as well. So even that is not being respected. And usually the infamous quote of Thatcher, "There is no alternative to capitalism," is today accepted by the so-called realists and reformists. They are not ready to tax. That is why they introduce austerity. If you look at the amount of, if you look at the tax evasion and avoidance by multinationals, if you look at the lack of wealth tax in most countries, you will see the amount they are not ready to tax the rich, to tax multinationals. Not only that, they subsidize them. If you look at the subsidy given to even fossil fuel companies, you will see the money goes there. If you come to Europe, the money is there to beef up their so-called defense budget, but they have no money when it comes to funding social services. So austerity on this side and subsidy and allowing tax evasion and avoidance with impunity. Just to give you a recent example, in France, they are discussing about a 2% tax on the wealthy with 100 million euro assets and above. That is being blocked by the constitutional court and by the ruling elite. And in fact, one ruling of the constitutional court said taxing them by 2% is expropriation. But if you look at what is happening in the austerity program being introduced, these cutting everything in social services and refusing to tax the rich. So this is what tax justice is, at least as a reformist movement, is just to say, make multinationals and the rich pay like the working people. That is not revolutionary, but that is not even what reformists are not ready to do. And there is something about reform. It is an illusion that reformists succeed. It needs a radical opposition for reforms also to take place. If there is no threat to the system is not ready to reform itself. That is why a radical opposition, a threat of delinking, rupture is the best word, I think. If you go back to history and see when reforms have been successful, it was only when radical social transformational movements were strong. That is why they are now shameless and arrogant to make even the basic reforms, because the so-called reformists have surrendered. They have become the servants of the system. And previously, actually, the state was given to the agents of the millionaires and the rich. Now they are physically taking power, and they are not ready to tax themselves. So unless there is a strong movement, a radical movement that attempts to supersede the system, there is no possibility of also getting reform. So let them call themselves realists, but they are repeating what Thatcher said. They are saying there is no alternative, but we have to say there is alternative. And only by threatening with alternatives can we also at least get reforms. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Deje, for that, and really for reminding us that even with the current system, it still enables those that are taking advantage of the current system to not even do the bare minimum, because paying taxes from what you have presented is really the bare minimum. within the current system that has been set by the global north, and so, but also a call to move away from the reformist agenda to a revolutionary agenda. So thank you so much for that inspiration. And now I would like to go to JP Aliano. JP Aliano is an activist, a co-founder of the International Degrowth Network. And JP uses communication to bring about transformative change, mainly focusing on the anti-imperialism, political ecology, and delinking. And JP will be speaking about degrowth and delinking with a focus on Mexico. You have the floor.
Thank you, Dina. For anyone that doesn't speak Spanish, I'm gonna shift over. So if you need to put on your little interpreting bits, yeah, now's a good time. Hola a todas. No puedo explicarles el honor que es estar aquí y a platicar con ustedes sobre temas tan importantes, en compañía de gente absolutamente, de gente absolutamente increíble, inspiradora. Y primero, antes que nada, quiero decir muchísimas gracias a las organizadoras, a Emilia, a Equidad, a la Secretaría de Mujeres, todos los técnicos, las interpretadoras y obviamente a ustedes y a nuestras camaradas en línea por estar aquí con su apoyo y su solidaridad. Yo voy a intentar de traer el tema de lo que hemos estado hablando y de que mis compañeras han estado hablando un poco más enfocado al local, a un poquito más a México y a nuestra ciudad. Y entonces, bueno, quiero empezar platicando un poco de nuestra ciudad. Aquí en la Ciudad de México es abundantemente evidente de que tenemos zonas con muchísima riqueza, al ladito de barrios extremadamente pobres. ¿Y dónde creemos que tienen apagones, falta agua, la inseguridad es alta? Pues obvio en las zonas pobres. Y esto no es mala suerte o porque la gente ahí se lo busca o porque son flojos, no, para nada. Es porque el sistema está armado así, porque así es como debe de funcionar. Y obvio, pues bueno, a veces en mi discurso tenía ¿qué sistema? Obvio no están preguntando qué sistema porque ya saben de lo que estamos hablando, pero bueno, el capitalismo imperial. Y bueno, pues por lo menos la gente o los medios dicen que es democrático, ¿no? Votamos por él cada 6 años y no importa quién está en gobierno, el capitalismo sigue, ¿no? Pero la verdad no podría ser más lejos de la realidad. Piénsenlo así, en la economía, o sea, en qué se produce, para quién y con qué recursos. Ahí la democracia no existe. O sea, imagínense, piensen en la última vez que sus jefes les dejaron tomar decisiones importantes, por ejemplo. O sea, me imagino que nunca. Los que deciden son los bancos, las grandes empresas y ese 1% que concentra la riqueza. Y su objetivo, la ganancia, ¿no? Hacer dinero. ¿La vida? ¿La restauración ecológica? Ni madres. Y por eso se sobreproduce lo que deja dinero rápido, ¿no? Coches de lujos, jets privados, fast fashion, inteligencia artificial, carne industrial, armas, etcétera. Todo eso con daños extremadamente incomprensibles, ecológicos y sociales. Y, obvio, no queda para lo demás y se subproduce lo que la gente necesita. Vivienda asequible, transporte público limpio, renovables, alimentos sanos, clínicas, salud, educación. Entonces, con esa lógica, ¿cómo nos pueden decir que más crecimiento de la economía, lo que nos dicen todos en poder, que es nuestra salvación, que eso solo agranda el daño, ¿no? Y deja necesidades sin cubrir. Y entonces, si tomamos un poquito un paso para atrás y miramos al mapa mundial, el sistema, como lo han dicho mis camaradas, se sostiene con el intercambio desigual. Acabo de ayer encontrar un buen papel con cifras de México. Trabajamos y producimos aquí, pero una gran parte de ese valor se va al norte. Tópense esto, en el 2022, el drenaje de valor por la maquila de exportaciones a Estados Unidos fue de 128,000 millones de dólares. O sea, alrededor del 11% del PIB de México. Imagínense lo que podríamos hacer con ese dinero. Así, exactamente así, se alimenta el crecimiento del norte, ¿no? Pagando muy por debajo el trabajo del sur, y aunque la productividad sea comparable, y apropiando recursos como el agua, la tierra, los minerales, el labor, la energía, etcétera. Y obvio, como ha quedado muy claro con mis camaradas, esto es global, ¿no? No solo es México y los gringos. Y este orden se normaliza y se impone, con reglas y con fuerza, con las recetas del FMI y el Banco Mundial, las normas del OMC. Ellos volvieron natural o normalizaron abrir nuestros mercados a la privatización y recortar lo público. Y cuando no alcanza la norma o cuando la gente se rebela, aparece la coerción, la violencia de un aparato militar y de seguridad liderado por Estados Unidos y sus estados vasalles para mantener la jerarquía global donde el occidente gana todo y el sur pierde. Esto es un sistema sostenido por la violencia real y, como hemos visto en cualquier movimiento hacia la soberanía, el socialismo o la liberación nacional, cada vez los matan, los asesinan, hay cambios de régimen, invasiones militares, desde el genocidio en Palestina y Sudán hasta los asesinatos de Thomas Sankara y Salvador Allende. Cada vez. Y entonces, bueno, otra vez a lo local, ¿qué puede hacer México? Nuestro país tan lindo y bonito. Obvio, mucho más fácil decirlo que hacerlo, ¿no? Pero creo que todos reconocemos y están aquí porque saben que las cosas tienen que cambiar y tenemos que hacer algo, ¿no? Entonces, en mi opinión, nos deberíamos enfocar en la soberanía, la democracia económica y el decrecimiento de industrias dañinas. Soberanía para decidir aquí sobre nuestros alimentos, energía, agua, tecnología, finanzas, comercio, etcétera, ¿no? Para cortar esa dependencia, ese vínculo a Estados Unidos y al norte que vacía de nuestra riqueza abundante. Segundo, la democracia económica, para que la producción responda a la gente y a la ecología, no a la ganancia y a la acumulación de poder y riqueza. Entonces, esto incluye mecanismos de finanzas públicas junto con obras públicas que nos permiten organizar directamente nuestras capacidades productivas en torno a los objetivos sociales y ecológicos necesarios para nuestro país. Como dije antes, vivienda digna, transporte público, agroecología, renovables, salud, educación, etcétera. Y, en tercer parte, el decrecimiento de los sectores de lujo y alto impacto, fósiles, autos gigantes, megadesarrollos especulativos, etc. Esto sería posible con la nacionalización de industrias orientadas para la exportación y guías de crédito obligando a que los bancos inviertan en la provisión universal y la restauración ecológica, en vez de fósiles, privatización, acumulación, etc. Bueno, estos son principios clave que nos pueden ayudar a democratizar la economía, a agarrar la soberanía de regreso y deben estar en la agenda. Esperemos su apoyo en estas iniciativas y sinceramente me alegra ver que tenemos aquí un gobierno que por lo menos toma estas cosas en serio. Y esto lo escribí antes de que lo dijo Sara. Entonces lo voy a decir de todas maneras. Maldito sea el Estado de Israel, maldito sea el imperio gringo y maldito sea el capitalismo. ¡Viva Palestina libre y viva la ruptura! Gracias.
Thank you so much, JP, for you know, painting the global picture, but also really bringing us back home in terms of what is possible with our imaginations. And I was at Utopia, one of the Utopias here in Mexico City, and I was blown away. And for me, it gave me an idea of what it could look like. Imagine if everywhere in the world there were like such services that are universally accessed by every person. You know, I think it gave me a picture of what is possible. So thank you for bringing us back home and also like showing us really like concrete ways transformation and the revolution can happen. And now I'm gonna turn to wonderful speakers online, starting with my dear sister, Corina Rodriguez. Sorry, I'm struggling with pronouncing your name, but I hope I haven't done a very bad job. So Corina is a Latin American feminist economist, is a member of the Executive Committee of Development Alternatives with Women for a New Era, but also on with the same organization, Corina is or political economy of globalization. She's part of the political economy of globalization team. Corina has been doing great work in terms of like, you know, theorizing, but also really mobilizing, engaging, and carrying out advocacy. And today she will be speaking specifically on linking from a feminist perspective. Corina, I hope you are with us and you have the floor.
Yo también voy a hablar en español. ¿Me están escuchando ahí? Bueno, doy por sentado que sí. Buenísimo. Bueno, un abrazo a todos desde la distancia. La verdad que está siendo una conversación muy estimulante y yo quería, desde la perspectiva feminista, traer una reflexión que se vincula con lo que recién mencionaba Dina, que ayer visitaron una de las utopías, porque justamente quería hacer una reflexión sobre el rol que le cabe al Estado en un proceso de ruptura para construir alternativas económicas. Y lo primero que señalaría es que el Estado es un terreno en disputa y hemos durante décadas teorizado largamente sobre el carácter que tiene el Estado y lo hemos calificado como Estado capitalista. Su principal función es administrar las tensiones sistémicas para que el capitalismo siga siendo el sistema socialmente preferido. Y también desde la teoría feminista lo hemos caracterizado como un Estado patriarcal, que con múltiples herramientas ha regulado sobre los cuerpos, sobre las sexualidades, sobre los roles sociales, sobre las oportunidades económicas. Sin embargo, desde los feminismos y especialmente de Beijing para aquí, hemos logrado algunos avances aliándonos estratégicamente y críticamente también con el andamiaje de las políticas públicas, del cual Utopía es un ejemplo. El Estado ha sido sin duda un aliado contradictorio. Le hemos arrancado logros en algunos países, en algunos territorios, desde la legalización del aborto hasta licencias para cuidar, pasando por políticas contra la violencia contra las mujeres, y podemos citar muchos ejemplos más y diversos ejemplos. Pero también el Estado ha hecho un uso instrumental de los derechos de las mujeres. Seguimos teniendo una justicia patriarcal, sigue habiendo brechas de género atravesadas por las múltiples interseccionalidades en todos los órdenes, e incluso en algunos países y en algunos territorios hemos estado teniendo o estamos teniendo retrocesos de esos logros conseguidos. Y sin dudas el Estado sigue siendo profundamente capitalista, y esto es algo que también hemos señalado desde el andamiaje feminista. El Estado está debilitado en sus facultades fiscales, tiene cada vez menos espacio para hacer política pública, porque está cooptado, entre otras cosas, porque está cooptado por las corporaciones, ¿no? Y eso profundiza su carácter capitalista. En algún sentido también el Estado se ha transformado casi en el brazo armado del capital para imponer la disciplina que el capital necesita. Y el poder del Estado también hoy está en muchos sentidos cuestionados por otros poderes económicos fácticos, como el poder de los tecnomagnates. Entonces, en este contexto, yo quería traer algunas preguntas y reflexiones para pensar un Estado para la ruptura. Y me parece que hoy, cuando en muchos de nuestros países crecen y se consolidan las visiones pro mercado que traen las derechas, me parece que reclamar el Estado puede ser justamente una posición contrahegemónica. Y además, pensar un sendero de ruptura significa lidiar con algunos puntos de entrada estructurales y el Estado es uno de ellos. ¿Qué forma debería tener un Estado que sirva para este proceso de ruptura? Bueno, yo creo que debería ser el resultado de un nuevo contrato social que ponga a la sostenibilidad de la vida en el centro y que al hacer esto también pueda recuperar su legitimidad, que el Estado pueda volver a ser sentido por las mayorías como una herramienta útil para sus vidas, como una herramienta necesaria para sus vidas. Yo creo que un Estado funcional a un proceso de ruptura tiene que tener entre sus objetivos y entre sus prácticas recrear la idea de lo común, de lo público. Un Estado que en lugar de estar cooptado por las corporaciones, como están actualmente la mayoría de nuestros estados o todos los estados en distintos grados, esté cooptado por las personas, para lo cual necesitamos una burocracia, un andamiaje burocrático, un aparato burocrático que esté alineado con alguna forma efectiva de democracia participativa, que la ciudadanía tenga un control efectivo de ese andamiaje burocrático. Y sin duda, un Estado funcional a un proceso de ruptura tiene que regenerar su propio poder económico. Y esto se vincula con muchas de las cosas que se dijeron anteriormente. El proceso para mí tiene que ser uno en el que en algún sentido podamos ir copando, cooptando al Estado desde visiones rupturistas y que utilicemos justamente su maquinaria para generar este poder común. Es sin dudas una disputa de poder, por lo tanto lo que necesitamos, y con esto cierro, son estrategias creativas para generar contrapoder, desde los territorios, desde las bases, desde nuestras propias experiencias con lo público en los distintos niveles, desde nuestras experiencias concretas de vida. Yo no dudo que las mayorías queremos vivir en un mundo distinto y creo que este encuentro es un ejemplo de eso. Queremos vivir en un mundo distinto, queremos vivir en un mundo mejor y de lo que se trata es de ponernos de acuerdo y de poner manos a la obra. Y como no las voy a poder abrazar en persona, les mando desde aquí un abrazo inmenso. Muchas gracias por generar este espacio tan potente de encuentro y ahí seguimos empujando por la ruptura.
Thank you so much, Corina. Warm hugs to you too, and thank you so much really for emphasizing the role of the state and really having a new system where the state is not being co-opted by corporates, and really centering the lives and the well-being and the care of people. So thank you. There's so much love in the room. I don't know if you can see, but everyone was listening intently, and we are all sending you so much love. And now our last speaker, but definitely not the least, is a wonderful woman, and that is Esther, which I'm going to introduce Esther, and Esther is also going to be speaking from online. Will be joining us online. Esther Kamak is a feminist indigenous leader from Peru, and also a founder of Intercontinental do Murejen Indigenous do. Can you help me read the founder of her organization?
del enlace continental de mujeres indígenas de las Américas.
Thank you very much. I promise you next time I come back, I'll have learned Spanish, because we must also be able to communicate as we are creating the revolution. But yeah, Esther is a wonderful woman. She's a fighter of indigenous people's rights and women's rights. Esther, you have the floor, and we miss you in the room, but we are really honored and happy that you are joining us online.
Ahí va.
Muy buenos días, soy Esther Camac Ramírez, soy quechua peruana, pero viviendo y mi trabajo es en Costa Rica. Trabajo con los pueblos indígenas, soy parte del enlace continental de mujeres indígenas, conocido como ECNIA. El ECNIA viene trabajando un proceso que se llama justicia económica. Este proceso nos ayudó a repensar como mujeres indígenas qué es la justicia económica. Muchas veces nosotras no habíamos trabajado sobre las mismas economías como parte de nuestros derechos, sino hemos estado más desde la perspectiva de la lucha por los derechos de los pueblos indígenas, de las mujeres indígenas, en la erradicación de las violencias, el fortalecer los liderazgos, la participación política, pero muy poco de temas de economía. Y desde que iniciamos el proceso, empezamos a preguntarnos qué es economía para nosotras. Pudimos identificar que primero, ancestralmente, todos los pueblos indígenas de las Américas tenían sus propios sistemas de economía que fueron destruidos por la colonia. Muchos de ellos se mantuvieron con algunas prácticas de comercio, de intercambio, de trueque, pero se ha desarticulado la totalidad de lo que es los sistemas económicos de los pueblos indígenas. Y empezamos a trabajar un poco sobre eso. Había tenido y tiene un impacto, y del cual le llamamos nosotros el dolor histórico o el trauma de la destrucción de la economía de nuestros pueblos, y empezamos a plantear la importancia primero de valorizar y la necesidad de recuperar nuestros propios sistemas económicos. Segundo, hacer un proceso de sanación de esos traumas económicos, de la economía, y parte de eso es que el despojo y el robo que nos han sometido ha hecho que nosotras no valoremos todo lo que poseemos, que nosotros somos pueblos herederos de pueblos muy ricos, con mucha riqueza, que la Madre Tierra todavía nos sigue otorgando, y el cual empezamos a cambiar incluso nuestras propias formas de vernos a nosotros mismos. Y uno de ellos es la conceptualización de pobreza, ¿verdad? Nos han empobrecido, pero nosotros no somos pobres. El segundo momento, cuando hablamos de la economía, empezamos a recuperar sobre los principios en el cual se fundamenta nuestra propia economía, y nuestra economía se funda bajo los principios de la reciprocidad, el cuidado de la Madre Tierra y el cuidado individual y colectivo, ¿no? Tenemos en muchos pueblos con nombres muy diferentes, pero con los mismos conceptos, y afirmando que nuestros pueblos tenían sistemas de comercios más justos también, y la importancia de recuperar esos sistemas de comercio cuáles son y qué cosas podemos poner también en esa economía de mercado. Por otro lado, identificamos también que la economía de mercado que nos está haciendo mucho daño está llevando a la muerte de la madre tierra y en el cual estamos en resistencia. Nosotras empezamos a cambiar, por ejemplo, algunas formas como nos han enseñado, digamos, ¿no? Que los recursos que hay en nuestros territorios, que mal llamados recursos naturales, dijimos que nosotras nunca más vamos a hablar de recursos naturales, sino son bienes de la madre tierra que nos da para vivir en abundancia, para vivir en plenitud, para vivir bonito, sin limitaciones, cubriendo las necesidades básicas de las familias, que es la alimentación, la salud, que son los principios básicos, incluidos la espiritualidad, incluidos la recreación como principios básicos de ese vivir bonito. Estamos poniendo en la base de nuestra palabra, tejiendo la palabra, la propuesta también de qué significa desde nosotros las mujeres indígenas, la propuesta indígena del vivir, del summa causa o el vivir bien, o el vivir bonito, poniendo también desde nuestras visiones, porque en este momento en muchos pueblos indígenas no se vive bonito. Hay un sufrimiento, una lucha, un cansancio, y nosotros queremos reivindicar y construir a partir de nuestra meta de lograr soberanía económica. Nosotros no queremos hablar de empoderamiento económico porque la lógica tanto de muchas mujeres, de los gobiernos cuando hablan de economía, nos plantean la importancia de trabajar en el empoderamiento económico, y nosotras no queremos entrar en el empoderamiento económico, sino lograr la autonomía y la soberanía económica a partir de lo que tenemos, transformando también con tecnología lo que nosotros necesitamos. Y por último, decir que estamos construyendo una propuesta como mujeres indígenas y la necesidad de plantear una economía en equilibrio. No para decir que vamos a vivir en equilibrio con el modelo de la economía de mercado, sino bajo los principios del equilibrio que nos han enseñado nuestros abuelos, nuestras abuelas, y está en nuestra cosmovisión indígena, que viene desde el principio de respetar a la madre tierra, de pensar en nuestras raíces, nuestro presente y visualizar nuestro futuro, replantear principios de economía sobre la reciprocidad, el trabajo individual y colectivo.
Thank you so much, Esther, for really bringing such great fresh perspective to this discussion, and also reminding us how the colonial project causes us trauma. And, trauma from destroying our food, our medicines, our exploiting our knowledge, our labor, and yet come back and sell us economic empowerment initiatives. And really, I like how you reject that. You reject the empowerment, because for feminists have always said it's not about just getting women, put them in the economy that doesn't anyways function, like stand, mix, and continue. And thank you for laying that out very well in terms of that cannot be what we're working towards, but really working towards autonomy, liberation, and freedom. Thank you so much. We really do appreciate that, and working towards an economic system that centers healing and well-being and care of each other and care of the planet. So with that, we have a few minutes do we have any minute at all? We didn't want to hear from the audience, but yeah. But Emilia is going to guide us on the next steps.
Lo siento, estamos súper tarde, pero les tengo una propuesta. Primero, muchísimas gracias, un gran aplauso a estos panelistas de lujo, increíbles, que nos invitan a pensar desde otro lado. Muchas gracias a Dina Bustindarbeso por moderar también este panel. Un aplauso también para Dina. Y les quiero hacer una invitación, hagamos una clausura, tenemos una invitada muy especial para hacer la clausura y después pasamos al patio a oír al grupo de Son Jarocho, donde podrán también interactuar en vivo con las personas panelistas. Pero antes de salir, quería invitar yo aquí al podio a Dafne Cuevas, que es la secretaria de la Secretaría de las Mujeres de la Ciudad de México, una gran aliada, una feminista inspiradora a lo largo de todo su proceso, una leyenda en el espacio latinoamericano para promover, para sacudir a los estados y darnos una transformación real. Es una gran colega que aparte está ahora acompañándonos en este proyecto con un sueño, porque la Ciudad de México está también explorando estas nuevas vías para un nuevo sistema. Entonces, Dafne, es un honor para mí darte a ti la bienvenida a este festival para que nos acompañes en unas palabras antes de dar la clausura formal del espacio.
Muchas gracias. Muchísimas gracias, Emilia, qué bonita presentación. Siento muy bonito. Me alegra mucho estar aquí en lo que es la clausura formal de este festival, pero que en realidad esta es la parte pública de una conversación que nos acompañó a lo largo de toda la semana, con la presencia de todas las compañeras, no solo las que fueron hoy panelistas, sino otras más, en esta reunión internacional, para seguir pensando juntas, en colectivo, cuál es el mundo que queremos construir y qué se necesita para ir hacia ese rumbo. Entonces, yo estoy muy contenta de haber sido partícipe de esta semana. Estoy muy contenta de que muchas de las compañeras de la Secretaría de las Mujeres estaban emocionadas también de la discusión, participaron en diferentes momentos, hoy vinieron. Y sé que también hay gente conectada, como nuestra querida Corina, que nos hizo su presentación en línea. Así que, nada, este es un momento para mí importante, porque siempre la posibilidad de seguir pensando juntas, juntos, dándole forma a las propuestas con las que queremos darle rumbo al mundo y transformar, siempre es un sueño, ¿no? La incidencia es ese lugar desde donde queremos tirar hacia qué horizonte. Y hoy además yo tengo la posibilidad de intentar ejercicios concretos desde un gobierno de una ciudad que está intentando apuntalar hacia el rumbo de esas transformaciones, sin que sea fácil, digamos, es complejo, el mundo está cimbrado sobre estructuras donde cualquier cosa que quieras mover te detiene, te sostiene, te jala. Así que bueno, entendiendo el tamaño del reto, pues por eso el tamaño de las complicidades y de la construcción de alianzas y de los diálogos plurales. No tengo más que agradecer la presencia de todos y de todas, de los que dedicaron su tiempo para volar desde lejos, para estar aquí, las que se conectaron, las que llegaron hoy a esta parte pública de la reunión, y seguimos, porque tenemos hoy la continuidad de una conversación que no concluye, sino que sigue abriendo las puertas para que sigamos pensando juntas y para que tratemos de llevar a las realidades cotidianas nuestras propuestas transformadoras. Muchísimas gracias y hemos clausurado.
Muchas gracias, Daf. Y sin más, damos por clausurada, como dice Dafne. Quería hacer antes de cerrar y salir, los agradecimientos al equipo técnico, a las traductoras maravillosas que nos permitieron hacer esas alianzas a lo largo del mundo, al equipo técnico que ha estado aquí acompañándonos allá arriba, al equipo de equidad, a Denise, a Armando, a Alma, a Sam, que han estado aquí, Mel, que viene también a acompañarnos, el equipo que está allá afuera, que nos ayudó al registro. Muchísimas gracias a todas y todos, al equipo de catering que está afuera. Y una cosita, por favor, entreguen los dispositivos de interpretación, no se los vayan a llevar. Pero con esto vámonos al son jarocho y van a iniciar con 2 piezas rituales, el canario y no recuerdo el otro, pero ellos les van a comentar. Son piezas muy importantes, muy excepcionales para escucharlas en vivo, así que vamos y no nos lo perdamos. Y la ruptura empieza y sigue. Muchas gracias.